Out here today in some of the central forest land region of Wisconsin, doing some scouting for the map reading challenge with Sean McVeigh. Sean has a YouTube channel, Sean's Outdoor Adventures. I know a lot of you guys that watch my stuff probably already watch his stuff, but we're basically met up today, had pre-scouted digitally some of the stuff we want to go look at, and we're going to do a hunt probably early October time frame. And so today really the main thing is get that postseason scout in, get some actual boots on the ground data of the area, kind of confirm or cross off some of the spots that we digitally scouted. And we probably will do a August quick scouting trip, spot check type of thing, and then the actual hunt in the fall. It sounds like our strategies vary a little bit just in terms of what we digitally scouted. My strategy is to try and find, number one, food, but also bedding in close proximity to one another. So most of the areas that I pre-scouted digitally look for bedding type stuff. And this is kind of, most people would call this big woods type of habitat. Not very much ag, if any, for a lot of this area. But there's definitely oak trees, which that time of year probably will still be a notable food source for these deer. And I just figure if I can find an area that probably will have low pressure, an area that has some of those oak trees that may be close enough to bedding, that's kind of where I want to focus my time. So I'm really just walking these transition lines where I expect to find bedding, looking for those bedding areas to confirm them. Maybe some of them have hunter side, maybe some look great, but then also trying to find what's the closest food source to those. And I'm just speed scouting, trying to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So the very first spot here that I had picked out on the map to be able to check out, pretty close to kind of an open swamp. Got a bunch of thick stuff I had to walk through to get here, and there's oaks all throughout this area. There's old rubs, some new rubs, scrapes, but there's also, as you can see, a tree stand right here. So that's not particularly surprising to me, but what it just means is I just gotta keep walking the transition line and find stuff that also looks good but doesn't have any hunter sign, because that's probably where I'm gonna have a lot better odds. Potential bedding, food, set up in here. So you can see that I got that one little high ground island there where there's a couple trees, couple small oaks, and there's that one tall cluster of trees back there I could be able to hunt out of potentially. That island tapers off into the tamarack point where I got those rubs and that bedding. Now some of those trails go that direction onto the main part of that island. Some of those trails come right back to where I'm standing right now, and pretty much right past this red oak tree there's a little scrape right there, and just overall a very heavy trail coming right down through here. So picking this tree to hunt out of would allow me to not only cover these trails really well, but also see across that marsh toward the direction of that island to know if potentially there's any movement going that way that I missed. Okay, so I found a spot right here that I like. Not huge sign, but a lot of sign. And essentially, what I'm on is this little high ground knob that sticks out into the marsh. And on the back side of it, separating me from the access, is a bunch more swamp. So it's kind of like it's an isolated island in a sense. And there are a couple oaks, like this one right behind me here. And there is actually a scrape right underneath that oak, and then just behind me there is another oak. There's also reds kind of scattered across this little spot, and there's definitely trails, two major trails I guess coming out of that point. One I'm standing on, The other one's about 30 yards that way with a scrape on it. And there is this little cluster of 3 trees right behind me here. Those are the trees that I would essentially want to set up in, because then I can cover both of these trails, can cover both of those oak trees that are most likely going to be producing next fall. And I have access that should be pretty doable, and it doesn't appear to be any hunter sign in here. This is another one of those reasons why it can be so valuable to take a walk post-season like this. It's so much easier to see other guys' stuff in the woods because it's not covered in foliage, so it's pretty easily able to pick out that there's a trail camera right there. It looks like it's active. I can see the red light blinking. So I guess we'll find out if the guy gets me on camera. Maybe he'll send me a message. And one of those scrape drips and tree stand. But it's nice to find stuff like this too, because very clearly he's not mobile. He's pretty much appears to be committed to hunting in this spot, which means that the deer in this specific area have probably got that figured out. So I know that I want to at the very least avoid this specific area, regardless of what the sign looks like. Got a place that has a lot of deer sign. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white oaks of varying size, and you can see some of them are right on the edge. These 2 right in front of me here, the bigger one is probably a good stand tree, because there's some trails that come in right through here. There's also some really heavy trails that come out right through there. So you got less than 20 yards shooting in a couple different directions from that tree. So I finished up that scouting day by essentially getting back to the truck, driving to a different area, scouting that swamp too. Really wasn't that much good deer sign there. Found a lot of hunter sign, found a couple stands, so I didn't really spend much time there at all, and just got back to the truck and headed home. But overall, I'd say kind of about what I expected. I've definitely found a lot of deer sign in and around those marshes. Found some good areas where I think I can set up in the fall. And granted, this is just going to be for basically like a weekend type of hunt. So I think I found enough there to really have some confidence moving forward. What I didn't find was a lot of, say, big buck sign. But again, kind of got to manage expectations for a short hunt like that in an area of the state that isn't really all that well known for producing a bunch of giants. You know, really what I'm looking forward to on that trip is just kind of getting together with a couple of guys and having a fun hunt together. I'm also pretty excited to see what Sean found, because I know he spent a lot of his time up on some of the higher ground and not so much in sort of the marshier areas like I was in. So when he posts his video, I'll have a link to his video in the description down below, and really excited to see how this turns out.